Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Squatchers Lounge podcast with your hosts, the two biggest nobodies in Bigfooting, Mr. Jeffrey Kelly and Kip Morrill. Jeffrey Kelly is a 39-year-old computer engineer and musician. He spent the last 20 years searching for the cryptid known as Bigfoot / Sasquatch. Those years have been spent scouting all along the mountain ranges from Pennsylvania to Florida. Many years spent in Florida searching for both skunk ape and Bigfoot. He has a biology as well as a technical degree from the University of Central California. Jeffrey Kelly is a lifelong woodsman and Bigfoot witness and all-around outdoorsman. Also with us, this handsome man right here, we have Kip Morrill, and I think I'm saying that wrong, but I'll get it right eventually. He's been interested in Bigfoot and Sasquatch, the subject, since around the age of 7. Kip grew up with all of the stories coming out of Northern California and was fascinated by the possibility of a giant living in the mountains so close to home. Although he has never had his own sighting, he enjoys getting out into the woods to seek his own evidence. Kip still resides in Northern California, where he works as a federal wildland firefighter. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, bro. Appreciate the introduction. Mr. Kip, I'm glad to see you here with us. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. I'm pretty excited. It's kind of a new thing for me, but like all of us, interested and excited about the subject. So let's get it going on.
Absolutely, and we're here tonight. We're going to talk about Daisy Palooza. That's right. We're going to get from the top to the bottom of it. Tonight our guests are going to be Melissa Adair and Rob Goudet. And I figured I'd start out the show this afternoon by giving you my thoughts of what I really thought about what was going on versus the troll that I gave everybody on the Bigfoot Evidence blog as the Squatch turns. You know, I don't really know how I really felt about it. I didn't want to get personally involved. Initially, you know, the initial posting of, you know, Daisies in the Box from Ed Smith was just fantastical to me. It was a creation that I thought was interesting enough to follow. And it was. It came from the MABRC forum. You know, I was one of the first people to see the posting, and I actually had to read what it had to say 3 times before I could actually get a grasp on the concept of whether I could believe or not that somebody was able to put one in a box and actually have it under study. It really was kind of scary in the same token that it came from Mr. Ed Smith, being the same person that we had just not 5 or 6 weeks ago back in 2012 that was talking about DWD giving us the idea that Ed Smith might have a Bigfoot body to put under study, maybe something he had found or had been discovered had been turned over to him. And for almost 2 weeks that whole fiasco went on, whether we could or could not confirm or deny whether in fact Ed Smith had a body or not. And you know, so it was kind of scary at first. What was your thoughts about that at first, Kip?
You know, the first thing that I thought when I saw that come across, and mainly I got it through following all the different Facebook pages, Team Taser, The Lounge, those types of places. And my first thought was, here we go. And if it sounds too good to be true, it normally is. But like most Bigfooters, I hoped for the best. I thought, well, maybe it sounds outlandish. I don't know who this Ed Smith is. But as we started to look further into all the details, and when the details started coming out, and they were very detailed, it almost seemed like it was verbatim, kind of going along with, I believe Guy Edwards had it come out, his 5 steps towards a hoax. And it just really started to follow along that timeline. And so kind of as the days went by, my hopes that this was actually some sort of a reality just kind of dwindled. You know, but I still held out hope. I thought, gosh, you know, maybe there is something to this. Then you start wondering about the different things about the subject, Daisy, wondering about if there really is something in a box. Is it something is it being kept safe? Is it injured? You know, I don't know. There's just a lot of things going through my mind. But knowing that in the Bigfoot field, that it's a lot of egos, a lot of different people that want to be the first to come out with information, understanding that we're all in this because we're interested. I just kept thinking that maybe it was just something that was prematurely thrown out there, and that maybe there was something that would become of it. But through the days, I started to feel like maybe my first gut instinct that it was a hoax was was to come to fruition. So that's where I'm at, Jeff.
That's good thinking. I first looked at it, and I decided to go ahead and, start to blog on it, knowing that the podcast was going to be coming up. We'd be right in the middle of the fiasco I was hoping for. At least now it's come to a conclusion, and we can really get to the root of it. I started looking at it like a soap opera. I mean, from the very first post that I put up, it's like, I can see the TV movie being made now starring Jack Black as the Bigfoot. It played out that way. It moved further and further along as this super secret agent James Bond spy movie, and I just kept blogging about it. I'll admit, I trolled it. I did. I kept feeding the fire. I wanted to see where it went, because deep in my heart, I really hoped that this was the one. I really hoped that somebody had finally had the resources, the time, and the money to actually see through a project and get the question answered. Because honestly, that's what we're all really striving for, is the fact that, a lot of us are looked as crackpots because we'll say, I saw a giant ape man in the woods covered in hair and he wasn't human. And I'm sorry, my entire life I was afraid to talk about it until I found a community that was at least willing to listen. And now we've got some troll that wants to come out with a fantastical story. But it really seemed plausible with the way that he was talking about it, because after the first initial leak of information that we got from him, that in fact that Daisy was in a box and it was being transported to a study facility, and all of a sudden now the animal's health isn't concerned. And then the leak shut up. There was no real more information from Quantra leaked as of Ed Smith. Everything else was a thought or a plan or a protocol that was Original Six, whatever that real mess really turned out to be, that nobody seems to be able to come up with any real adventures of. But if I were the one running the study, I sure enough would have cut him out as well. I mean, it just got way entirely too big, too fast, and not just a little bit of information being out to the community. They wanted everything. And as a personal note, involving Dr. Meldrum in the whole scam was just, it was atrocious. It's unforgivable. And it's really disheartening to see that the most credible name that we have in the entire world of Bigfooting has now been slung through the mud, sort of. I mean, on his own page, he admits that he was contacted, and that's enough for me to say that the troll went entirely too far. Something that should have stayed at the MABRC forums was brought to the entire Bigfooting world, and everybody was trolled, including the good doctor. And to me, that's just... It's unforgivable to me. What do you think about that?
And I'm anxious to talk to our guests just to get their take on how everything kind of perpetuated and how it came down. But one of the things that I always kind of struggled with was the fact that is it something? Do we really want the mystery to end? I know that a sighting and an experience is a personal experience for everybody, but it's almost one of those things where it's almost the mystery and the intrigue about the whole subject is really interesting. And I don't know, maybe it's one of those things where you kind of halfway hope that it's kind of a personal experience that you have and that you keep, and that maybe it does remain a mystery. That's just another perspective, but nonetheless, it's a perspective. So,
well, I can agree with the enthusiast or the hobbyist of Bigfoot, that the whole idea of getting out into the woods and searching for the creature and doing howls in the woods and tree knocks, trying to get some kind of activity to come back to you, is the lure in finding the animal in the first place. And once we say that they're there, and we've proved it, and maybe a couple of them are in a zoo so they can leave the rest of them alone, the lure and the fun of all that portion of it will be over. But in the same token, now we can alert the other, 160 million people that go out into the woods that aren't Bigfooters what to look out for, how to avoid Bigfoot territory, how to avoid Bigfoot areas and feeding areas and watering zones, so that they don't get into a situation where they might have a large primate tear their arms off and beat them to death with them.
Well, and working as somebody that works for a conservation agency that deals with regulatory issues when it comes to endangered species and other things, it opens an entire new can of worms for a can of worms in one way, but protection perhaps in the long run. But this whole Daisy thing brings about something that I don't know. Maybe this isn't this isn't the show. It's maybe a whole new show on how, as a community, and I know I use that term loosely, but how, as a community, the Bigfoot community, how do we expect to deal with people who are hoaxers? Do the names ever come back up? I know that there's the opportunity now on the internet to come back as anybody you would like and different names and those types of things. But it just seems like one of those things where it's the hoax is such a damaging thing. A hoax is so damaging to people's people who strive to do things the right way, and their reputation ultimately gets hung out to dry because of hoaxing. Because unfortunately, we all know that the media and everybody else tends to look at the negative, and they look at that side of Bigfooting, and so I think maybe it's a subject for another show, but how to deal with and how we're going to look at how to deal with hoaxers in the future. Do we bring up the names of those people again, or is it going to be something Harry Potter-ish where the name is to never be spoken again? I don't know, but that's something to consider.
I agree. I completely agree with you. And that's what we're going to get into. So why don't we go ahead and introduce our guests tonight, Kip, and why don't you tell us a little bit about them, and we'll get them in on the show, and we'll see what their feelings on the subject are.
Okay, well, I'm going to first introduce Melissa Adair, who's also known as Siren. She's been a field researcher for 7 years. She began in 2005 after attending a BFRO expedition in North Georgia. Shortly after attending the expedition, she became an investigator and actively conducted field research, helped organize expeditions with the organization for a few years. Eventually, she went on to be involved with other groups and has attended expeditions all over the country. Melissa is the co-founder of the Bigfoot Chicks and Squatch Unlimited and has been a writing consultant for Skookum the movie. She's appeared on numerous Blog Talk Radio and TV shows, as well as co-hosted After Hours with Team Taser. Melissa also writes the frequent articles for the Bigfoot Chicks blog, and in less than a year has propelled the blog into one of the top Bigfoot blogs on the web. As a key part of the content on the blog, Melissa has access to hundreds of historical newspaper articles that describe encounters with large, hairy, wild men. The articles cover 3 centuries and date to as far back as 1700. Many of them were found by both Melissa and Cajun, which would be Rob Goday, who is also here with us on the web. 3 to 5 of the ancient articles are released through the Bigfoot Chicks blog each week. When she's not in the woods, she's looking for proof of Bigfoot's existence. She is a devoted mother of 2, works part-time as a preschool music teacher, and maintains a private violin studio, which I thought was really interesting. Melissa is also a classically trained vocalist and violinist. So let's welcome Melissa.
Welcome, Melissa. How are you this afternoon?
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
And our second guest is who, Kip?
That would be Rob Goday. And Rob is also known as Cajun. He is a co-founder of the Squatch Unlimited. He is affectionately known as the HGP, otherwise known as the Hunter Gatherer Protector. Basically, he does the technical and dangerous stuff and gets the campfire going early on the cold mornings. Rob was a Bigfoot researcher before being a researcher was cool. He's been looking into Bigfoot for nearly 10 years. He's the founder of a technology company and is well known in the Bigfoot world and is respected for his thoughtful and analytical approach. Rob's most compelling evidence is also one of the most puzzling and clearest photographs of a cryptid ever taken. The photo is known as the Beast of Seven Chutes and was captured on camera in 2005. The Beast of Seven Chutes photo has stumped scientists and cryptid hunters alike. Rob's also involved in the film industry and is directing a Bigfoot movie he co-wrote that features Dr. Jeff Meldrum. The film is called Skookum and includes Bigfoot in a mystery about a missing girl. Rob is a member of several research organizations along with Squatch Unlimited. He is a member of the American Bigfoot Society, serves as the Mid-America Bigfoot Research Center Louisiana State Director, and is a member of Southern Bigfoot Investigators. Rob first became curious about cryptozoology and Bigfoot after watching Bigfoot Bill. So welcome, Rob.
Welcome aboard, Rob. Glad you're here this afternoon.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
Well, guys, let's go ahead and just get into it here. We are talking about Daisy Palooza, and, let's start out with you, Rob. Honestly, what were your first thoughts about that initial post by Ed Smith that, Daisy is in the box?
They were interesting to me. Ed Smith, for me, has always been an enigma. He's somebody I was familiar with from Maverick. I've been with Maverick since it started in 2006, and Ed came along a couple of years after that, and just like Daisy in a box, he had these great grand plans and stories that he laid on us. And just like people were skeptical of him the first time he showed up, myself and most people with Maverick were skeptical of him, because you just don't do some of the stuff he's talking about without significant backing, number one, or number two, without being totally insane. And so which way are you going to go? Are you totally insane, or do you have money? I mean, both are possible. So while we trusted him to a degree and checked him out, nothing really stood up to us that said he was insane. Most of the things he told us seemed to level up, and this was back in 2008. And some of the stuff he presented to us were very fascinating. I released about 20 documents yesterday that he presented to us that were, I mean, in and of itself, those documents are compelling. And then to wrap it all in this shroud of secrecy, where these were created by a secret group that you little people really can't know anything about, but we'll give you little bits of information here and there. Why not? Let's just follow it. Let's see what happens. And in the meantime, Darren and Randy were checking him out, and Darren will be releasing a statement very shortly about the whole thing, everything that happened to him, how this came down. And Darren, I've known him for I guess 6 years now, and he's always been a stand-up guy. Darren, to me, I don't know if you guys watch Gold Rush. Darren reminds me a lot of what's his name, the guy with the beard on Gold Rush. I just watched.
You're talking about Todd Hoffman himself.
Todd Hoffman, yeah, he definitely reminds me a lot of Todd Hoffman. He's a straight shooter. He's trusting where he has to be, and he takes lead where he has to.
Well, that then there becomes the question again. Then I mean, I agree. The whole longevity of the troll is what had me kind of hopeful that the real backstory was actually going on. The fact that the protocols had been posted in 2011, and they had gone back as far as 2008. It could be proved to that, And I read through the protocols, and as an intelligent, military raised person, they really did. I mean, if I had the money, the backing, and the capabilities, I could go straight through those protocols, put something in place, and I'd have Daisy in a bag.
Yeah.
I'd have her in a trap. I might not have her in a box like an outbuilding. We'll go there a little bit later. But, if I had the resources, absolutely I could do it as well. But, the protocols were compelling. But the Ed Smith the man is what bothered me. There was not enough information on the forum there about Ed Smith the man and where his background really was. Because I'd like to know, and we'll get into this a little later on, what the real background is. But, Melissa, I wanted to get your take on what you actually thought about how it was when Daisy was in the box.
Just like any kind of information that comes across like that sounds too good to be true, you approach it with a heavy amount of skepticism. But as the details came through, and like you were just talking about, it was so detailed and so many possibilities that maybe it could be true because of so much work and money and all these claims have been made, and this military style operation. It was just, again, you just had to. You had to be cautiously optimistic. Maybe they do have something, and that was always in my mind. That this is really too good to be true. And I was kind of like Kip said earlier. It was like, wow, that'd be great if it really was true. We could really know and learn about them. But at the same time, it was like I understood what Kip was saying at the very beginning in his introduction about, well, then it'll be over. It's like the thrill of finding it is kind of gone. But because it is a personal experience, and when you interview witnesses that have seen them, it's so exciting to hear their encounter and everything. So that kind of went through my mind as well as it'd be exciting to learn about it and to see it firsthand if they actually had one. But I guess also a little sad in a way that that the mystery had been solved. But I was very mixed about it when it came out. I wasn't sure. I hoped that maybe it was true, but at the same time, I was looking at it with a degree of skepticism.
Very good. I appreciate that. The view of skepticism is always is the important part. Anything presented without evidence has to be looked at as skeptical evidence. You can't buy into it, and that's what a lot of people did. Kip, how did you feel? Do you have any questions for Rob on the beginning part?
I do, and just real quick, and it would be either for Rob or Melissa, but one of the things that intrigued me the most and kind of was maybe the biggest red flag was the amount of detail. Here was this guy that was supposedly had been in the inner circle and had been allowed to all of a sudden been out of the circle, but been given all this information, and here it was, this intimate detail that he was just spilling out into the world. For me, that was a huge red flag, and I'm just wondering what your thoughts were on either one, Rob or Melissa.
To me, everything's a lie until it's proven. The fact is, though, you have to treat it like it's truth. It's kind of, it's kind of a chicken and egg. The important thing for me was to put it out there and stay neutral on it. And to me, I feel I'm just coming out of the fog. I don't, other than, thinking Ed is quite a despicable person. I think he's brilliant, but he's a despicable person for being willing to go this far. But there was no proof, number one, that anything Ed said was true, other than what Ed told us. We knew Ed was a real person. I had no doubt Ed was a real person. I had confirmed this myself years ago, and I was confident he was a real person. But on the other side, who could prove it was a hoax? To me, all of the people saying this was a hoax, prove it. If you can't prove this is a hoax, then either go out and prove it's a hoax or shut up, because you have no proof about what you're talking about. And to me, that's irresponsible research. A scientist should not make, my wife is a scientist. She has a PhD in chemistry. She runs a lab. You don't make statements without facts. And it's either a fact that it's a hoax or it's a fact that it's not. Everything else is speculation. And you need to respect that line and not cross it.
Clear up until the time that it was released, that supposedly the Ed Smith new logins were, claiming glory and of the troll and, actually claiming that it was a hoax. I still had that little inkling of hope that, maybe they just shut him up and this is disinformation, and that, in another 16 weeks, we might actually get a full study that was done, and good news, the animal recovered and it was released back into the, to the territory that it was released from. I really had just that little, clear up until yesterday, really. I still had that little.
Yeah, the cars hadn't tumbled for you yet, right?
Right. Well, and that's the thing, is because it's possible to do. We just watched the Finding Bigfoot episode with the giant FLIR trucks, that they can see 6 miles out. They have better ones than that. If I had $5 million to invest in that type of equipment and do a long-term study of an area that I'm sure is active, like I said, it's possible to put one in a bag if you have the money, the resources, and the time to do it.
There was one thing, though, to me that always bugged me about this, and I've never told anybody this. I don't think I've even told Melissa. So they claimed that they dropped a cage over it, right? That was the claim. It was a cage that was enclosed and they dropped it over it. I didn't
catch that claim.
I think it came from above, and if that was the claim, and again, this is all still a fog. I'd have to go back and be sure. But to me, how are you holding a cage up like that?
With a crane?
With a crane, exactly.
There's
some serious logistics that would have to be really well done, and that was one thing that always bugged me. In my mind, what he said was, I really would have to go back and look. And the fact is, the logistics of this did seem a bit out of the scale of what you could put into the wilderness. How are you going to get the equipment in there? You're not going to carry it back on camel or mule. So there's some serious logistical questions that would have, you kind of maybe say, okay, the details don't matter because the claim is so big. But in the end, some things did bother me about it.
Well, Rob, that's what I was going to ask you. Next question was going to be when did you feel in your heart that it was hoaxed? When did you know for sure that it just wasn't real?
And
was it
I'm
before
sorry,
you agreed
broke
to?
up for me there.
I'm sorry. I said, when did you feel that it was that it was a hoax? Was it before you agreed to be on the bridging team, or was it after?
It was well after. The point that I realized it was a hoax was probably 2 days ago. 3 days ago, when the bridging team was no longer needed. It was, whenever that was Monday, maybe Monday or Tuesday. That was the point that I was like, okay, this is too much. And that's where, I would say the fog has been for the last 3 or 4 days for me personally. I think yesterday, I got a call, or it was the day before. I guess it was the day before, because me and Melissa weren't even up to speed yesterday. Melissa got kind of mad at me too yesterday because she and I were out of sync. I mean, in her mind, she didn't quite, we weren't on the same page. I knew stuff that is going to be posted by Darren. I've known it for 2 days now, and it's probably going to be no surprise to most people, but I knew it, and I hadn't shared this with my teammate yet, and she was a little upset with me because she said, we're going on the show tomorrow, and I'm still kind of in the camp, well, maybe contra, maybe not contra, and I was like, look, the cards have fallen. It's over. This is as big of a hoax as I've ever seen.
And it's
except
huge.
for Patty, which is a whole different discussion.
Oh yeah, well, Rob, you and I, we're going to have that discussion at the end of the show here this evening. But the whole thing that gets me is the longevity of it. I mean, wow, how much time and effort has this guy invested into it? Now, the other problem that I had with it, as well as Darren and Randy were vouching for him, man. They were vouching for him full on without a speck of evidence. And you guys have already said that you thought he was a sketchy character.
They vouched for him in so much as they knew who he was. But you can ask Dr. Meldrum, who Darren spoke with. You can ask Kathy Strain. You can ask Steve Coles. You can ask Abe. You can ask anybody Darren has spoken with. And anything Darren's written has always been, I don't know if what Ed is telling us is true. He posted it on our forum. He said, I know Ed is a real person, and we've checked him out. One of the things that is a fact is, they had lunch with Ed. They sat across a table from him in Oklahoma somewhere and had lunch. And when Ed paid, he pulled out his credit card. And when they did that, Randy glanced down at it and saw his name on it. And it was Ed Smith. You don't fake a credit card. Wow. His name was Edward Smith, and we knew that. That was the point. Like, okay, you guys know this guy's name. The rest I don't care about because we can find you now. If you know your name, that's all we need. So the rest of it, you go right on and make up stories all you want because we're going to find out the truth.
I'm going to put an open call out right now. Ed Smith, contact me. You can contact me by the S Lounge Podcast at gmail.com, S Lounge Podcast at Twitter. Come by the fan page. Contact Jeffrey Kelly personally. I'd love to talk to you. Come on onto the air with me. I want to know your inside to your head why you invested nearly 5 years in a troll that turned out to be we don't care in 14 days. You invested all that time in your life to troll the entire community, which I don't know if you were attempting to troll the community or just the MABRC forum people, and that's another question I'll have here in a moment. But, yeah, come on the show with me and talk to me. I'll give you the open air mic. We can talk about the background and why hoaxers do such a thing, why the atheists of Bigfoot so want everybody to disbelieve that Bigfoot isn't out there, that they'll invest this kind of time to make themselves look like an asshat.
You know what? He's done some damage to the species. Just straight out, he's done damage to the species, and it's not because of the reputation of Bigfooters. I mean, Bigfooters have a bad reputation anyway. We're all nuts because we believe something big and hairy is walking around in the woods.
Here you are on the show with the two big hairy buddies in Bigfoot.
You know where it's hurt us is with people that have no clue that these things exist, and they run into them in the woods. And now they're going to be afraid to come talk to us and talk about it. They're going to be afraid of being called hoaxers. And, it's kind of like this term racist. You don't just toss it around. You make damn sure if you're using it, it's true. Same thing with the word hoax. You don't just throw it around. It's not a good idea. It hurts the overall species. You have some proof behind what you're saying or don't say it. because it hurts the ability of witnesses. Witnesses won't come forward because out of the fear of being called a hoaxer.
This whole experience is actually, it's a really good example of the challenges that we have in this era of new media. When we talk about new media, we're talking about Twitter, we're talking about Facebook, we're talking about instant news. And so there was a time when news sources would wait till they had all their facts in a row before they let everything out. And now it's a challenge to get that word out first thing. I mean, when the aircraft went down in the Hudson, the first image that came out of that, it wasn't NBC News, it wasn't CNN, it was Joe Schmo taking a Twitter picture saying, "Hey, this airplane just landed out here in the middle of the Hudson." And I think that we're faced with this new media challenge when it comes to Bigfooting too. Here we are. I mean, this thing was perpetuated and just it was out there, and it's a challenge for us to still try and figure out a way to most responsibly use this new media. I don't know what the answer is, but then again, and maybe Melissa, maybe you can help me out with this. Do you feel that, when this information comes out, do you feel it's a responsibility to get it out there? I mean, if there's news there, and even though it may or may not be completely true, do you feel that we do have a responsibility to get that out to the Bigfooting world?
I think that if you have a blog or website such as we do, and part of what we do is to share the news from the field, it's up to the individuals hosting that news to be as thorough and as accurate as they can as they're passing it. Our job as bloggers and owners of websites is to post what we get from the field as we have received it. So and I think in this case, we did a really good job of making sure we communicated very well with Darren and know what his wishes were, and only posted exactly what he gave us to post, and what he was able to verify, post by post. So I think if you own a blog or a website, and part of what you do is to post news from the field, you should be careful with what you post, absolutely, but if you were the one celebrating the news, you also need to be the one to be careful to check the facts on that as best you can.
Now that leads us right into the next question I was going to ask. Was Rob, you guys claim to be the official source of the truth on Daisy in a Box, for quite some time, and of course now we know how it's all broken down. How's the backlash been on the website? I mean, do you have more people coming and visiting the website and joining in, and feeling bad that you guys were trolled along with everybody else? Or, have people really been kind of hating on you because, you guys kind of enabled the troll a little bit as well?
Yeah, no, we've had both. We've had the haters and the lovers. I think the lovers far outweigh the haters because, we have thick skin, and all that we really cared about was making sure that the truth got out. You weren't going to be, we stayed the course and kept it simple. I have my own opinions about it, but I never stated them. I didn't think that was really appropriate. We were the source because I was connected directly to Darren. It turned out to be a good thing. The Maverick forums would not have been able to handle the traffic. Melissa and I set up the SU site about 3 to 5 days. It wasn't long before this came out. It had nothing to do with this. It was just
it was the 23rd because when I saw it, I actually joined.
yeah.
I mean, it was fantastic. It was 5 days.
Right.
It was the 28th is when the first post came up with Daisy in the Box.
Yeah, and it just happened to be a good setup. And
so this wasn't a troll. This wasn't an admitted troll by you guys to get a giant audience to come and join in the Squatchers Unlimited, because I've seen that charged to you guys as though you promoted all this because all you wanted was people to come to your site, and all you wanted were members and stuff to have content on your brand new site so you'd be able to sell advertising and everything else. And I wanted to give you this chance to say no, the site was up long before the tragedy of Daisy Saga ever even started.
Hey, and I'm paying $25 a month for that site. I haven't even told Melissa that. You can go look. Me is $25 a month for the lowest level you can get.
Yeah, for your own shared server. That's about right. Now, Kim, do you have any questions about the hoaxing portion of it?
Say again, one. I'm sorry.
I said, did you have any questions for Melissa or Rob about the hoaxing portion of it? How they felt about it?
And just to kind of back up, Rob and Melissa, just looking at their putting onto their blog site, I thought it was very responsibly done. We didn't know. We were going with, and I think that you guys do have a responsibility to get it out there and put it on your website. And we'll say your Squatch Unlimited site is one of the better ones, and it's really impressive. And I really appreciate that you guys are doing what you're doing out there. And so that's my take on the hoax. I don't think that I think that they did a good job getting the information out there for what we knew it was.
Thank you.
Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks. And the Squatch Unlimited site is it's something that I'm a developer. I've been doing web development for 17 years, so it's great to be able to combine what you love with what you do, and so I appreciate the comments, Kip.
Definitely. I enjoy the site well. I mean, you guys have seen me there. You've both spoken to me on the site. I comment on things all the time. It's great to go up there and read different people's takes on articles. The open blogging is kind of nice, where any member can go in there and do a blog. That's and everybody gets a chance to read it and comment on it. That's pretty decent. Now, really,
it's continued to grow actually through all of this. You were asking about backlash or whatever. We really haven't seen very much of it, and it's continued to grow. And people have come forward and shared their stories, and it's been a great thing for us. And we decided to go ahead and do this this Ning thing to bring some things over from the Bigfoot Chicks thing. That there was so much information there. We're trying to look for a bigger and better way to share it. So
there was a problem with the Bigfoot Chicks. I'm not a chick. That was the
that we always kind of started to wonder about that, Rob, just a little bit. The last thing I wanted to cover here, guys, while we're in the interview portion of it, is what do you guys have coming up soon? Do you have any expeditions going on? I mean, you got any trips planned?
Go ahead, Melissa. We've talked about this.
Yes, we have an expedition tentatively scheduled in February. We're going to be going to southern Arkansas, so we're excited about that.
Which ought to lead to a whole bunch of debate, because supposedly that's where the Daisy creature was brought.
Yes.
Oh, that should be fantastic. You guys will have to look for the facility while you're out there.
That's right. We're going to look for it up in a tree.
Yeah.
So.
Now, are you guys going out there to research into a report or a sighting or something famous, maybe footprints or tracks or anything?
Well, we have a friend that's made us aware of a couple of reports that are in that area, and I think we'll probably look at some of those. And then, depending on where our target area, wherever we decide that is, we always have a system of checking out the reports in that area and the history of the reports, and we try to sync it up as much as we can with the time of year that we're there and that kind of thing. And there's a lot of prep that goes on before we go in there, but yeah, we definitely try to look at reports before we go in.
Yeah, we've actually identified 4 different dates this year we'll be doing trips on, and we tend to pick the location as we get closer to the date. Our friend is Maximus Decimus Meridius. He's all over Facebook.
That's funny. That's my dog's name. That's my little dachshund's name. We're actually going to have a segment sponsoring him later in the shows.
So Max has access to eight fleers that he always has several that he brings with us. So he's a great guy to have around. He's a bit of a sissy sometimes and crybaby, but he get over it. He's listening, so he'll appreciate that.
Being a research organization that tends to be mainly in the East Coast, do you ever look at yourself coming out to the West? And I guess the second part of that question would be, do you ever foresee a benefit to maybe inviting a West Coast researcher to come and join you and vice versa to kind of look at different research techniques, different things? Is that something that would ever interest you?
Yes, definitely. We've talked about that a lot. We would love to branch out into different parts of the country that we haven't been to before. We would love to meet other researchers, love to hear what they've been able to uncover in their research and see how they do things and just learn from each other. We think that would be great to see more of that, and to see more of that captured on video and brought back to the blogs to show everybody that you can work together and you can peacefully coexist, and one way is not always the most correct way of doing things, and it's just, I think it would be a great idea, and we're very open to that. Absolutely.
Yeah, we just need somebody to buy us plane tickets.
Yes, we need a benevolent benefactor. We're ever looking for one of those.
Well,
Jeff, can you help with that?
No, unfortunately, I am not a benevolent anything quite yet. Give me another 20 years, I'll make my 20 million. However, I have learned from the IRS that the taxes on 20 million are indeed 21 million. So it may be quite a while before I can start swinging plane tickets for people. You know,
Nice.
you guys have been fantastic guests. I very much appreciate you guys coming on and really talking about this. You know, we pretty much covered the whole Daisy saga from start to finish. I wanted to get over to our version of Robin Quivers, the rock and roll jihad there in the studio. Are there any questions in the chat room there, sir, that you might have?
Well, there's not a whole lot of questions, but there are a lot of compliments being paid. Everyone is very appreciative to Sasquatch Unlimited for reporting just the facts. You know, just keeping everything real and up to date as it happened. And the one person did want to say that. And this is our friend Paul. He did want to just mention that his dog is also named Maximus Decimus, and he's a Chihuahua, and he only has 2 flares, though. So, but
well, I know that I appreciate that they're out there watching us in the chat room. You know, our audience will grow. You know, it really will. I want to give a big shout out to Miss Tammy Murray. You know, my sassy glassy pendant did actually show up on time, and I wanted to bring it out for the crowd so everybody can see it.
Tammy,
you know, I wanted to say everybody say a nice big happy birthday together to Richter Rollo. He won't tell us how old he is, but everybody together. Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Richter. Thanks for the drawing of me, by the way, which is really interesting.
Thank you for that,
We
Richter.
haven't seen my drawing yet.
I like the earring the best.
Yeah,
I want
that's so neat.
to say a big thank you out there to Peter Lowe.
Good
He's
chatting
our
with the Bigfoot
cartoonist.
chicks.
Peter Lowe did the Peter Lowe actually did the logo for the Squatchers podcast and allowed us to use it royalty free. So I very much wanted to see a shout out for him. If you see the picture on any of our websites, there's actually a tag in there for him. He does fantastic work. So you can always give him a call or always contact him. He's out there in Hong Kong somewhere, so who knows what time it is. You guys have any shout outs you want to give out before we go?
I want to give a shout out to probably one of my biggest blog talk heroes, Abe Del Rio. He does it right, and he's a great guy, and I don't know if he's listening, but I'd be honored if he was. And a couple of shouts out to my Bigfoot mentors out there, Bigfooting mentors, Tom Yamarone and Bart Catino, and just wanted to say if they're out there, great. If not, then get ready because you're probably going to become a guest at some point.
and it is Bart's birthday as well, so shout out to Bart for his birthday.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Bart.
Happy birthday, Bart. That was yesterday, absolutely.
Oh,
Very
and
much-
real quick shout out to my buddy Sean Evidence too for promoting us. Sean's
I was
awesome.
just about to
He
go
is
there
the-
myself.
Just
Bigfoot
showing nothing but love
Evidence.blogspot.com.
to Sean and Miss Evidence, his wife too.
Oh,
was
for all
awesome.
of her patience through our nonsense as well. And our producer, Rock and Roll Jihad, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Melissa
thanks, Rob.
Adair
You're
and
welcome.
Rob Goudet, thank you very much for coming on our premiere show. We very much appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
We'll have to have you come
Thanks for
back.
having
Loved
us.
it.
We'll come back and talk about your evidence, and you know, stay tuned because we'll talk about that panel on whether Patterson's a hoax or not.
Have me on it. I'll lead it. See you guys.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Have a great afternoon.
From
Thank you.
Jeffrey Kelly and Kip Morrill and Melissa Adair and Rob Goudet and the Rock and Roll Jihad, we say thank you for watching our first show. Come back and see us next time.
Peace out. Thanks.